to the PGK show. I'm your host, Luke Aleshire, and I'm joined today by...
My name is Lucas Gleim, another host of the PGK show.
We've got a great show in store for you today. But first, how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, It's a Monday, but I feel incredibly energized for it being a Monday.
Yeah, we're recording this on a Monday. Sorry for it being a little bit late. We had some sicknesses going around and some technical stuff. So we're here. We're doing it. And I'm excited to have you in. I got to share last month, and we are now in episode 2 of the PGK show. And Lucas is going to share his story. Before we go too far into that, so you just are starting, your third year now of school?
Actually, no. Surprising that you asked that. Not surprising. We'll cut this out in post. So, what
are you up to right now?
Okay.
Right,
let me start from the beginning.
Wait.
Sorry. So, school, actually. Funny that you ask about that. So it was really a financial burden on me. So I chose not to go back for this semester. I'm taking a semester off. I'm working over there at the school, Shepherd Christian School. Excellent place. Lots of godly people. Wonderful program. I'm working for their aftercare. I'm helping them with IT, information technology, helping them with their computers, chargers, basically anything that they need technologically wise. It's a big word for you. 5 cents. Technologically. Boom. But I am planning, surprisingly enough, this will be the first time that I'm really throwing it out there,
cool.
So it kind of makes it official. In November of next year, I'm going to take a test to get certified to become a firefighter.
Awesome.
Hopefully with the Columbus area, so I can stay close to home, family, and all that. Another great thing that I found out is they also help pay for school.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about doing that. It'll be nice, getting off my rear end and doing something out and about, meeting new people through all of that, and really set myself up for success in the future.
Yeah. I definitely see where you're coming from. Obviously, I had to share last month that it's not for everybody, and that's okay. And I'm guessing that's part of where God's leading you to. So let's kind of dive right in. So as the name of the show suggests, we are both pastors' grandkids. And so I got to share last month about how my grandpa really was crucial to us meeting, but also in my faith as a Christian.
Right.
And I would imagine that almost everybody who has either a parent or a grandparent who is a pastor, I would imagine that they would probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
So as a PGK, what was it like growing up for you?
As a PGK, I don't want to say it was strange, but it definitely wasn't the same as a lot of other people's experiences. It was little old me running around the church of old Pat Naz. My grandfather, Dan Stiers, was the lead pastor, and I don't want to say I got perks, but I was definitely treated different.
We both did.
Yeah, and I think him being a pastor really shaped my view of my faith, because I see in him what I also see in myself. Not like a ton. I'm not saying I'm my grandpa, but it's like I see him and I'm like, the way that he lives his life is how I want to live my life in the future. And I guess having that role model there was really helpful for me at a young age.
Right. I'm sure, if you're listening to this and you are a member of Shepherd Church or you're around Shepherd Church quite a bit, I'm sure you've probably heard this, but it can be a little bit intimidating to be either a PK or a PGK, because there are a lot of eyes on you, and
expectations to live
up to. To
be
completely honest, there should be. As someone who's called into ministry myself, there is a pressure on us to have houses in order. And so I imagine for you, and I know this was the case for me as well, that you had those kind of moments where you're like being watched by the congregation. So did that ever play into, your faith? Did that deter you, or was that more motivation to do better?
I think that's a great question. I would say that it definitely made me more private, because around church, a lot of people knew who I was, know me now. And I think that deterred me away from being true and 100% to my faith and my story and who I am as a person. Because in my mind, and I'll get into this later too, is I always looked at myself. I didn't give myself the value that I think I deserve, and that's weird to say because it doesn't sound very humble, and I don't like bragging on myself, as weird as that sounds, like genuinely, but I always saw other people, and it was like I don't want to be entirely transparent because I have expectations that I need to live up to, and if I fall short, if I sell, it's like these people are all looking at me and being like, well, aren't you the role model?
Right. So I think what's really cool, and we even see like there are certain points in scripture where Paul is talking about, a lot of people were looking at Paul as this role model, and still to this day, he is a great hero of the faith, as we might say.
Right.
But even he says, I do what I know I'm not supposed to do, and I don't do what I know I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And then he says, what a wretched man am I?
Yeah.
And so if Paul can look at himself and be like, look, he even says also, all have fallen short. And so I think that's an important thing to mention, is that, there are these expectations, but also recognizing you're gonna fall short.
Right. And, that's really good reassurance to hear, because as I was growing up, it was very much like I hid everything, all my sins, everything that I was getting into and things like that. It was I put up as many walls as I could. I wasn't even honest. I wasn't honest with my parents. I wasn't honest with my friends. I don't even think that I had a single person that knew who I truly was, even a year ago,
Right.
And I feel like it all roots from the fear of everybody is going to look at me differently because of my mistakes, and they're going to see me differently because, it's me.
Right. Well, I think that's part of the beauty of grace. And in fact, I would say not even just a part. I think that's the whole beauty of grace.
Right.
Is that God doesn't just look at us as someone who did this or someone who did that. He sees us as his own.
Right.
And so when he sees us sin, it's not about him viewing that sin and thinking that we're less than. It's him seeing that sin and saying, son, daughter, I have so much better for you.
Right. And
I just so badly, God just wants so badly for us to choose that way of life.
Right.
So I think oftentimes, I should ask you, did you ever feel like when you were younger that was there ever a point where you really took a hold of your own faith? Because like I know often with PGKs or PKs, it's really easy to fall into, my mom or dad or my grandpa or grandma or whatever is a pastor or is heavily involved in the church. So I just kind of go along with it because that's what my parents or grandparents do. But I think, and it's not just in like pastoral people, I think also in just prominent members of the church.
Right.
Was there a point where you were like, I need to take a hold of this, and this needs to be something that I choose?
Yeah, there definitely was. But it was really a lot later than you would expect. This might surprise you, but I think that my journey with God like really started like when I started taking my own steps, to improve this relationship and improve my lifestyle and try to be more like Jesus and things like this. Like that really happened. That switch happened probably when I was 16, when I was 17. Like it took me a long time to get around. And I think that I used, growing up in the church and grandpa's a pastor and things like that as like an excuse. I didn't really use it like, oh yes, I'm all godly and perfect, but it was definitely like, I go to church, I sing the worship songs, I listen to the message, and like, I feel it resonate me. Therefore, I'm doing great. I'm walking with God. I'm doing my own thing. But in reality, I wasn't. I was just living, I don't want to say like a role, but that's what it was. Like I wasn't pretending because I felt God's presence. I knew who he was, but I wasn't making any effort at all to become who he wanted me to be. Because I mean, it hurts to say this, but it's true. When I was a kid and I would do things wrong, even in my teen years, like I would think to myself, I would be like, before I even sinned, I would say to myself, well, God will forgive you, and that led me down some really dark paths. But I think it was about 16, 17 when I truly made the decision to stop selling myself short and stop making excuses and to really start walking with God truly.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about what was going on in your life at 16 or 17 that really made you come to that point. Because, and I mean, it could just be, you felt God's presence more. But, with it being, you're looking at it and you're saying, it was this point in my life. Was there a struggle that was going on? Was there any kind of like, just whether it was a loss, whether it was a struggle, whether it was just, feeling down? Was there something there that caused that change?
I don't think anything changed to make me, change what I was doing.
Right.
I think it was just I grew sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean? And I was in, and I still struggle with this every now and then, but the really only way to describe it is despair. Like I would go through the motions of my life, wake up in the morning, go to bed at night, and throughout the middle, it was all just a blur. And I remember many times, like whether I was in the shower or sitting on the toilet, scrolling through TikTok or in my bed at night, it was always coming back to the things that I was doing. And I'll be transparent and I'll say, I was getting into some bad stuff at a young age. I was exposed to pornography, and it's nobody's fault but mine. And it's weird to blame me because I was like 10.
Right.
But it was like I went out of my way to look for that and to find that satisfaction. And I struggled with porn for a long time.
Right.
And it messed up relationships, and it was tough with that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then things went downhill from there. I got into even more terrible things. I started vaping and smoking weed, and I was honestly, I am 100% confident now I can say it that I was addicted to many, many terrible things.
Yeah.
And there would be nights where I'm laying in bed, high out of my mind, and it's like, I just think to myself, I'm like, what am I doing? Mm-hmm. Like I'm sitting here like wasted, like literally rotting away.
Right.
And it's, man, it's just looking back on that now. It's like, I think I got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Right.
And I told myself, I was like, I got to quit telling myself that I'm going to get better tomorrow.
Right.
I'm going to get better now. And I think that's what really turned me around.
Right.
I was like, I'm putting my foot down.
Yeah. And so, well, he kind of mentioned it. If you always, this is sometimes used as an encouragement. I know one of my friends who's in the military. He said that the way he got through his basic training was that he said, "I'll quit tomorrow." And so if you always quit tomorrow, you never quit, right?
Right.
But that's
right.
On the opposite side. He was, in your case, you're saying, "I'll get better tomorrow," or "I'll stop doing this tomorrow. I'm going to put it off till the next time."
Right.
And in that way, it's the exact opposite effect. Where in the instance of, I should be doing this and and I don't want to be doing this, "I'll quit tomorrow" is an encouragement. But when I shouldn't be doing this and I say "I'll quit tomorrow," that is a hindrance. And so I'm sure because I've heard a lot of stories like yours where they've been dealing with a struggle. It was just all sunshines and rainbows right after you said, "Oh, I'm going to quit." I'm sure that's not at all what it was like. For me, I always responded to the spiritual 2x4s to the back of the head.
Yeah.
Was that something that you experienced, or was there kind of like a wake up call of God really pressing on your heart? Hey, get up, do what you're supposed to do, and get better.
100%. And I genuinely attribute my recovery to my best friends Logan and Samson. Like I've known those guys for nearly a decade, probably more. And I was in such a dark place, and they didn't even know at the time. And I was at church one day, and we were talking about small groups. And I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? I want to start my own small group. Like, because I remember doing Rooted back in high school, in middle school. And, I remember the connection that it brought. Because like I said, I still felt God's presence. Mm-hmm. God was still there for me, even in the darkest times. And like, especially, on Sundays when I'm sitting in the congregation and Pastor Rob's up here preaching about something, and I'm just sitting there and thinking to myself, like, man, if these people knew. But to go from this small group, I asked my friends, I asked Logan and Samson. I found other Christ-like individuals, and I asked them, I was like, I want to start getting into the Bible. I want to start studying it, and I want to dive deeper into God's word. And a part of that was a selfish reason to see myself get better.
Right.
And so, the small group, it was amazing, took off, Bible study. We sat down every Monday night, and I honestly, what I did was I just opened up the Bible, and whatever page I land on, I would talk about it. And I would ask my friends, I would be like, because it's amazing being surrounded by people who are truly wise. Mm-hmm. Because you can do things like that and just open it up and see something and be like, what do you think about this? Mm-hmm. And these people, and the people that I was surrounded with, thank the Lord, gave me insight on how to become better and see improvements in myself.
So, and I think that's so cool, because I also know from their testimonies, they actually recently got baptized here within the past few months.
They did.
And what's so cool is that in their testimonies, you're saying in yours here that they were a crucial part in you becoming better. But in their testimonies, they were saying, like, hey, Lucas was a big part in why I'm here, why I'm getting baptized, why I am the person I am today. And so I think that's just such a cool testament on how even when, you might be in a position where you were leading the group, that they might have seen that as, oh, he's kind of leading this spiritually, and you were, but you're also being influenced by them spiritually, and in this case it was a very positive way. 100%. And so you're seeing how God can work on both sides of the equation, where it's not just a it's not just transactional. Like I invest in you, and then somebody else invests in me spiritually. It's we can invest in each other. Like it's not just one way or another. This is both ways. We can both invest in each other. We can both have each other's spiritual goals in mind.
Right. And that's why I think it's so important that you have somebody to confide in.
Right.
Or even a group. And that all goes back to, my testimony. Like I didn't want to share anything about myself when we sat down for the small group.
Right.
I didn't want to expose myself.
Yeah.
Is essentially what you're doing is you're showing somebody all of your flaws, which is really hard to do, and I think that once I got past that, it was the fellowship of it all. I think that's why it's so important that people find a small group, find people to confide in, because you were never meant to walk alone.
No.
Adam had Eve all the way at the beginning. Mm-hmm. God saw Adam was alone, and he literally took out one of his ribs so he could have fellowship. It is one of the most important things in your walk with God. I
think it's so interesting. We did not plan this conversation to go necessarily this way. We kind of have a blueprint on, hey, we're going to talk about your story, but how well this aligns with what has been being preached on Sunday morning by Pastor Rob the past couple weeks. We recently started a sermon series into Exodus, but right before that, we did 2 weeks on the importance of community. And so, Pastor Rob in his sermon a couple weeks ago said, the only when God created the world, everything he said was good, but there was one thing that he said wasn't good, and that was Adam was alone. And then you look in the New Testament, what's the first thing that Jesus does? He gathers a core group of 12.
Right.
And he says, this is going to be the people that I use to build the church. And
if anybody could do it alone, it would be Jesus.
Right.
Yet he still chose to surround himself by the disciples and the people that he preached to.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, and he looks at Peter, whose name literally means rock. He renames Peter, and says, you are the rock I'm going to build my church on. And so I think that that's so powerful that he gathers a core group and he uses that to further the ministry. And then when he ascends into heaven in Acts, what does he say? He says, I'm going to pour out my spirit on you guys, and you're going to do even greater things than I did. And that is such a cool thing to see, but it's because of the community that Christ gives us. So when you found that community, was there a sense of freedom in it? Like when you were able to find a group of people that you were able to say, like, look, this is what I've been struggling with. And you saw that with how they reacted, and they didn't react with judgment. They didn't react with scoffs or anything, but they reacted with love. What did that feel like?
It felt amazing, to begin with. And then later down the line when, I would fall back into bad habits, I would watch porn again or smoke or something like that. I feel like that's when I lost that sense of freedom. And, I told them, and I was completely and totally transparent with them. I told them everything. And then it was that freedom feeling, I was like, I have a group of people who truly love me.
Yeah.
And it's like, my parents love me. Lots of people love me. I'm so blessed to live in a community full of love and hope. But it was definitely a different feeling, because it was like, I've told these people the terrible things that I've done. I've exposed myself. Like I'm standing in front of these people. Like it sounds weird, but it felt like I was standing in front of a board of judges presenting myself to be judged. and the feeling of no judgment coming from them, it was incredible.
Right.
And you know, you think it would get easier after you make those mistakes again to
Right.
come back to them and be like, you know, I messed up again. You know,
Right.
I'm real sorry, guys. It did not get easier.
Well,
I felt like after I became transparent with them, it became harder for me to tell my story.
Well, that's because, you know, when that happens, the enemy attacks you.
100%. And I felt that despair.
He tries harder because the worst thing, the number one tool used by the enemy is isolation.
Right. And I felt more isolated, and I felt more shame when I was coming back to them.
Right.
And I felt heavy, and I felt like a burden.
Right. And I think I imagine part of that is, you know, before you tell anybody about your struggles, it's all hidden. So there's no accountability.
You present yourself how you want to be perceived.
Exactly.
And they don't see what's behind the curtain.
As soon as you open yourself up to accountability, that's when it gets even scarier. Because that means that there's someone who could be keeping track. Now, whether or not they do, they're probably not keeping track. I know the people that you were, and I can guarantee you they weren't. But in the back of your head, you could be thinking, well, they're keeping track. Oh, I did this time, and I smoked this time, or, you know, watched this time, and I'm on 5 times of this and 3 times of this month, or, you know, like, and the reality is that means that you're like you said, you want to present yourself the way that you want to be perceived. And so instead of being honest with everybody, you're even more scared because they're like, you know, you're struggling, and you know they'll call you out on it.
Right.
So
right.
Did you feel like, and I imagine you did, but tell us about the kind of accountability that you guys had. Like, were there people that would see or hear, like, when you would tell them, and lovingly but still sternly say, hey, you need to quit that?
Yeah, especially towards the beginning, you know, now thank the Lord, you know, thank my friends, thank everybody involved. It has gotten much better.
Yeah.
But especially in the beginning, there were times where one of my friends, she is an incredible person, would look me dead in the eyes and tell me just flat out, I'm doing something wrong. And she was like, listen, this needs to change. And it's going to be your choice. It has to be your choice because nobody else can choose for you.
Right.
And that was one of the pieces of wisdom that I have carried with me since I heard it. It was, you know, you are going to be the one that takes the steps to change.
Right.
Nobody is going to, you know, stop you in the moment, you know, especially like the things that I was doing and I was getting into. I was alone at night with my own thoughts.
Right.
The only person there to stop me was myself.
Right.
And, you know, I would wake up in the morning and I would be sitting in the shower like, God, please give me the strength today.
Right.
Like, I want something to change, please. And then it would, you know, the whole day would go by and I would completely forget about that prayer until the moment right before I chose to sin. And a little reminder would go off in my mind, and I still decided to, you know, indulge myself and take, you know, the short-term pleasure
Right.
over the long-term satisfaction.
Right.
And
Well,
yeah,
and
that's what happened.
That's the thing, is that when you open yourself up, and like you have, I mean, I commend you. Because, you know, just like you told me, there are things about you that I would not have known if it weren't for this format. But I think it's so important that we tell these stories because it's showing, you know, even the people who are pastors' grandkids, or even the people who are PKs, or even the people who are prominent members of your church, whether it's here at Shepherd, whether it's over, you know, in Timbuktu, if it's in Johnstown, if it's in
Timbuktu before Johnstown. We love you guys.
If it's in Los Angeles, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what denomination of church you're in. If you are in a God-fearing church, if you're in any church, there are broken people.
Yeah.
And it's only through Jesus. It's only through the Word of God and a true understanding of the Word of God and a true, desire for the will of God that we see change like that happening. I am so thankful that we have this opportunity that Shepherd's given us to be able to do this kind of work where we get to share stories like this.
Amen.
Because I see week to week people's lives being changed.
Right.
And that's not to say that Shepherd is doing something uniquely different than any other church. I think what's happening is we're following the Word of God. We're following the leadership of God. And I think that this can happen in any church. It's not specific to Shepherd.
Right. And it's not just in a church, you
right.
know? Like, even, I guarantee you there's somebody listening right now that is struggling with the same things that
Absolutely.
You have or I have. And we're here to tell you that the shame and the despair that I went through, that you went through, and these terrible, terrible things that we're putting ourselves through, or even if it's situational, if something else were to happen to one of us or something, there's people that are going through the same things
right.
that we have, that you have, and it's easy to feel that you're alone, especially, remember, late at night, I was laying by myself. I was alone. But in reality, I wasn't alone, Just because you're not around people doesn't mean you're alone. You always have a community of people. You always have a family. And I know for a fact, if I had texted one of my friends, when I was struggling with temptation, if I had texted them and been like, hey, even if it was at 2:00 in the morning, somebody would respond, because somebody cares about you and loves you and wants you to succeed. And no matter your past, no matter your history, you may be expected to be perfect. You may feel that way, in anything that you do. You may feel you have expectations and a bar to reach,
right,
to achieve, or else people will be disappointed in you.
Right.
And the fact is that people aren't necessarily disappointed in you, right? They're disappointed you made those decisions, right? I'm disappointed I made those decisions. And I bet that, anybody's disappointed when they make the decisions to sin or
right.
to stray from God. Or even if, you're a non-believer right now and you're just like, I made a bad decision. It's normal to feel shame, right? But that's not what everyone else is going to feel. Right. There's a difference between disappointing and shame. No one's judging you for the mistakes that you made, because
right.
everybody's been there.
Right.
All sin is equal.
And so I think it's so important that we mention that when Jesus sees sin in the Bible, when Jesus sees instances of people who were, rejected by society, his first instinct, I should say, isn't to rag on that person. It's not to judge them. It is first to love them and address the issue. And I think that that's so important, because I think often as the church, and this isn't just this isn't Shepherd, this is the church at large, we get so focused on people doing wrong that we don't love them first. Now, loving them means that we don't stand for evil.
Right, because we care about that person
right.
so much, we don't want to see him
right.
fall.
And so, 100%. like in the instance that you were talking about, like, you had your friend who was saying, hey, you are doing something wrong. This is not okay. You need to stop. That is love. That is one of the best examples of love, because that is saying, look, I love you so much that it hurts to see you make these decisions because I know where these decisions lead. And you don't always know. The person who's telling you like you shouldn't be doing that or something like that, you have no idea all the time what they're going through. It could very well be that there's a friend that is telling you to stop because they've been down that road. They know where it leads.
That's 100% accurate. Come to find out, a few months later after that, she had told me that she was struggling with, smoking weed too. And it was shocking, honestly, because I was like, that's crazy. Like, I would never have expected you to be that kind of person, to go down that kind of, path of sin. But it's so amazing how God can put people in your life that will be there for you, and can speak from experience because they have gone through things that you would have never known otherwise.
Right. And I think it's just it's such a good testament to how God uses broken people. And he uses broken people with other broken people to heal people. And I think that's so interesting. Like you were saying, this was just you getting better. You had friends. You had friends who were broken. You had friends who were not as serious about their faith. And you guys grew together because of each other. Because God was using you, a broken person, to help heal them, but that he was using them, which were broken people, to heal you. And so I just think that is such a good testament on how we are never too far gone for, number one, for God's love. And number two, we're never too far gone for God to use us. Because it was a murderer who led the Israelites out of Egypt. It was a murderer and adulterer who gave way, whose son created the first temple. It was a thief on the cross next to Jesus who said, "Lord, save me." And who Jesus says, right, you will be with me in paradise today.
Right. And like, even before we sat down and recorded this podcast, I was thinking to myself, I was like, how in depth should I get?
Right.
Because it's like I'm exposing myself to the whole church. Mm-hmm. Well, not the whole church. As many people listen to this podcast.
Not even just the church. Like, we have listeners outside of the Shepherd community.
Right. And this is going to be somebody's first impression of me, is me being completely and totally transparent and, speaking on the things that I've done. And I was in my car on the way to work, because we're recording this after I worked. But I thought to myself, I was like, what should I include and what shouldn't I include? And that, I think it went back to, everybody is struggling with something. And I'm reminded of my friend, and I was shocked when I found out, all the things that she'd done. And, even to you, like some of the things that you spoke about last podcast, I had no idea about. And it reminded me that God will always be with you, number one, because there's beauty in everything, even terrible things. Right. God used my sin to pull me out of my sin.
Right.
Does that make sense? And I think, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, I'm back. I was thinking to myself, and I was like, I should be 100% totally transparent, because I know there's somebody out there that is struggling with the same things that I have, and I shouldn't be burdened by my shame anymore.
Right. You've given it to God.
I was looking at myself the same way that, the same way that you're describing them at first, is like a murderer, a thief, These things are not good things. And if you think they are, you need to get your act together. But I would look at myself and I would say the same things to me. Like, I would look at myself and I'd be like, even back when I was starting the Bible study, is how could I, an addict is the best way to say it, is how could I, an addict, someone who's angry, someone who is filled with despair, like sometimes I don't even feel God,
right.
And I still struggle with this sometimes. It's like sometimes I'm in church and I'm singing the songs and it feels like I'm just going through the motions. And I think that I just need to start being totally honest and let go of my shame and let go of what other people might think about me and let go of what I might think about myself and live how God called me to live. Because
Right.
I think that just recently, like when I say recently, I mean within the past year, I've started coming around and realizing that nothing else matters besides God.
Right. And I can tell you, as someone who has not necessarily been in on what was happening, but has observed you, like, I didn't know what it was. And you said the same. The crazy thing is, you said the same thing last month about me. Is that you said, you could see the changes happening and you had no idea what the changes were or why the changes were happening or what was going on in the background. But you saw, I've seen the change in you. I've seen a fire for God in you that I hadn't seen before. Not that it wasn't there, but it's refreshing to me. And to see that from you encourages me, and I'm sure encourages other people. And that's what happens when we go all in, is when the two of us are on fire. Well, then that brings one other person, and then they bring in one another person. Soon enough, we've got a whole crowd.
Right.
And I think that that's so cool. And what's so important to get from this is that there is a path to redemption, and that path is Jesus. And so I just think, would you tell us a little bit more about what it looks like since then? Like, what has your life been like since you've been honest, since you've let go of that shame more? And you're not going to be perfect on it. I'm sure that there's still some times when you're going to be shameful, and that's going to be normal. But what does it look like to live a life that is as free of shame as you can be?
It's pretty hard. I mean, the way that I look at it is I am still in the process of getting to where I want to be.
Right.
And I'm sure if you ask, like you could ask the Pope, and the Pope will be like, yeah, well, I don't know if the Pope will say that they're still not perfect because, I don't know.
I don't know. I think you would.
Maybe. Who knows? But I look at myself and it's like I am at square one.
Right.
I feel like I was at square one in the beginning, and I am still at square one now. I feel like, I've made progress, but I'm still not to the point where I believe in myself, which, doesn't sound hopeful for anybody listening, but it's 100% I see improvement.
Right.
I'm not laying in bed anymore thinking about how terrible I am. When I take a shower in the morning, all I think about is, do I need to wash my hair today or not? In which I just found out, by the way. I had no idea that you're not supposed to wash your hair every day.
No, you're
My
not.
mom told me that.
It's really bad for your hair.
Yeah, I did not know that. But now, now I am moving into a person who's not tied down by my mistakes.
Right.
Like, obviously, I still make mistakes. I still sin every now and then. I still feel temptation. I still go through all of that stuff. I do it daily. Mm-hmm. Daily, I feel the weight and the pressure of Satan weighing on me, trying to get me to go back to my old ways, my old self. But now I'm getting to the point, like even this podcast, this is helping me, just talking about it, getting it out there. I feel a weight is lifting off of me, And I feel like now I can be true to myself and who God wants me to be, rather than fearful of what happens if I'm not. Does that make sense?
Right.
Instead of living in fear of the consequences, now I am living in hope for the blessings that are to come.
I think Paul illustrates that beautifully in his letters. You know, I can't remember where I heard this. It was recently. It might have been on the Shep Naz podcast, but someone said, you know, the more you get into it, the more that you go all in for God, the more that you're really just like, I need to throw myself in. You see, the more you see where you fall short sometimes. And so when, like we said earlier, when Paul's looking at himself, and, you know, by most standards, and by the standards of the Bible, you know, Paul lived a godly life, right? He wasn't perfect, but he lived a godly life, right? And I would say that even he's looking, you know, the more that he got into it, the more that he became closer to God, the more you realize just how far away you are from him sometimes. And so,
Yeah, exactly.
And so that can be discouraging. But I think I also love what you just said, where it's like you're living in the hope that maybe right now I'm not as close with God as I want to be, but there will come a day where, you know, my time on this earth will be done. There will be a day where, you know, I will pass away in this life. And the thing is, that's going to give me the opportunity to be with God and as close with God as I can be.
And I think that the big change really came from me not putting it off anymore.
Right.
Like I was always like, I'll get better tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. But then you're looking forward to tomorrow. If you make the change and you do it now, then all you have to worry about in terms of tomorrow is the great things. You know what I mean? Because you've already made the decision to stop. Why would you worry about tomorrow? Just live in the blessings that you have now and the blessings that are to come.
Yeah. I think it's so cool because we're seeing in our generation now, we're seeing a big increase in people making decisions for Christ. And that's part of the reason why we started this podcast. It is for everybody, but we also wanted an opportunity to reach out to people in our generation in a format that they're consuming, and just say, hey, you know, there are people your age like you, but we're also going to bring on people who are a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger than us. And so it's just a scope of this is how God's working in people's lives all around. It's not just guys, not just girls, not just old people, not just young people. It's everybody. And I think that we're seeing these decisions made for Christ, and people are taking a stand. And I think I'm reminded of the stand that Joshua makes, where he says, you know, you guys can choose to worship, you know, these false gods, but I'm making a decision right here for me and the people I love, my family. We're going to serve the Lord. And I think that is, you know, the hardest thing to do is to start. And there comes a point where you have to make that stand. You say, I'm taking the stand. I'm drawing the line in the sand. And not just for me, but for my family. And your family might look different than a traditional, you know, mother, father, kids kind of thing. Your family might be your friends next to you. Your family might be your church family. But you've got to draw a line in the sand that says, I'm not going to let my loved ones, or I'm going to rather do everything I can, I should say, that I'm not just going to take a stand for myself, but I'm also going to take a stand for my future kids and for the family that I have right now. And I think that the blessings just flow when you do that. Because, I mean, we're both testaments to it, that there is generational blessing when someone takes a stand and says, for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Because that's what my grandpa's mother did, which led him to be a pastor. Actually, him and his brother to be pastors, which led my family to be very strongly rooted in the church, which led to me and my brother pursuing ministry. And it's the same thing with your family, where you have your grandpa making a stand or his family making a stand, and someone in your family made a stand to say, we will serve the Lord. And because they made a stand, your parents made a stand, and now you've made a stand. And I think that that's such a great thing. And I can tell you, at least for me, when I'm older, when I'm married and I have kids, I will make that same stand. And I'm sure you'd probably say the same thing. And I just think that that's so cool. I think that's all the time we have for today. I think that's a good place to stop. If you'd like to take a stand today, if you would like to say, you know, I've been hearing about this, I've been hearing about the healing power of God, but you don't know where to start, email us at podcast@shepnaz.org and just reach out and say, hey, I'm interested about this whole Jesus thing. I want to know what he can do for me, and I want to give my life. That's something that we can work with you and then reach out to you. It's the whole reason we started this.
And all the time, you know, you hear people telling you, you know, their story, and you hear people say, oh, you know, like, I was in such a terrible place and then I found God. And you're like, oh, yeah, cool. You know, I found God too, or, you know, I'll get there eventually. It's taking the stand, like you said. It's making that decision. And I mean, it goes back to if you can't force yourself to make that decision, you're wrong. You can, because yeah, it's just the way that I look at it is like, if you can get up out of your bed in the morning, you know, you can come to church.
Yeah.
If you can brush your teeth at night, you can come to church. If you can do anything that puts an effort, like put an effort into anything, you can choose to have a relationship with God.
Absolutely.
And it's giving him 100% that really changes everything.
Yeah.
It a whole flip, you know, and you will experience love like you've never experienced it before. Even if you're already a Christian and you're already walking down that path and you think, I can't go much further. I'm holy. I'm filled with the Spirit. I'm sure you are, you know, I'm sure, you know, me and Luke, we're both filled with the Spirit. That's why Jesus died on the cross, you know, is so that we could be filled with the Spirit. But whether you are giving your 100% or not is the defining factor.
Yeah.
Whether or not you receive, you know, the full potential of what you could be reaching.
Right. And like I said, if you're in that position where you're saying, I want to go all in, our mission here at Shepherd Church is to help people take their next steps towards Jesus. And so we can help you find those next steps. You can email us again at podcast@shepnaz.org. We'd love to maybe have you on the show. If you're interested, please reach out to us at that same email. We'd love to have you on the show and hear your story. That's why we do this whole thing. Follow Shepnaz on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all that, and do the likes, comments, and subscribes. Let us know what you think about that and of this show, and we're excited to get rolling. We've done 2 episodes now, and
now it's official.
Yeah, now
after the second episode, it's official.
After these ones, we get to hear from you guys, and so we're really excited about that. We've got some good people lined up and some amazing stories. God bless you. And,
love you all.
We love you all, and you guys have a wonderful evening, day, afternoon, week, month, whatever. Peace.
Catch you later.
Turn up, let the good times flow.
Twin.
It's Luke and Lucas on the PGK show. Turn up, let the good times flow. It's Luke and Lucas on the PGK show. PGK show where the stories unfold. PGK, they got something to say. PGK, flipping
This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.